I'm Jake Bogar. I'm a pre-engineering and physics instructor here at the Foster Tech Center in Farmington, Maine. My role through REV was as an administrator of the project here at the Foster Tech Center in Melville campus, and then also as a coach for Gorham and Portland schools.
My name is Travis Tierney. Outdoor leadership instructor here, which is what the REV Award allowed to happen here on my campus. So outdoor leadership instructor at Foster CTE, and have been with REV for the last 3 years. Started off in the first iteration, ended up as a coach also for Marshwood.
First thing I'd say for students, you met some of the students from last year that were here, and to be able to come back and see something that they were part of and created and that continued to be improved upon is amazing. For my own pre-engineering students, getting them outside the walls, not just programming robots or playing with aluminum and acrylic, but like digging trenches, using laser transits, just real practical skills working towards a common goal was huge. And then from the school perspective, I think it opened the eyes to a lot of colleagues as well as administrators that when two teachers are given the freedom and the resources to do something, and they can just go with it, and then have the support from our local administrator like Melissa Williams, our director. It's just amazing what can happen with, I'm guessing other people are thinking about, I wonder what I could do here. And even this workshop coming up, I think a lot of people signed up because they're curious about how to use data to drive innovative projects.
I'll start with students. Obviously, at the very beginning, 3 years ago, we were coming out of COVID, and I think some of the detrimental effects that we all saw from Zoom and from a heavy reliance on technology and lack of FaceTime to the exact opposite in this particular program, which is all about communication and leadership and face-to-face, and as little technology as we can get away with has been pretty life-affirming, I think, for a lot of them. And watching that happen and watching them grow and watching students who may not have known one another very well at the beginning of the year become really a tight-knit family based on the things that they're learning and doing outdoors has been super rewarding. From a school standpoint, the collaboration that went on, obviously with my friend Jake and his program, and all of the teachers that pitched in CTE-wise, that I've spoken to it before, but there were other REV teams around the state who didn't have access to the types of things that we had available to us because we had 22 CTE programs, and we didn't have to wait for anything. As long as we had someone that knew how to run it or do it or make it happen, or we taught ourselves if we didn't, and that was also fun. So from a lifelong learning and educational standpoint, like, we were doing things that we'd never would have done if this didn't happen. And then from a personal standpoint, I think I was also struggling as a teacher coming out of COVID. And so there were things that I'd always done with students outside of class. So there'd always been an outdoor experiential program here, but it had never been accredited program. But it was always my most joyful thing, was working with kids in the woods and on the waters. And so being able to make that an actual program where kids were getting credit and learning, and it was being seen and recognized for what it was, which was rewarding to everybody involved, was really fantastic. So lucky.
So I graduated from this high school in 1993.
Okay.
I moved here from New Hampshire, we always loved coming to Maine and going up into the Rangeley region, like the southern end of Aroostook River, and then had the opportunity to move here. So the outdoor learning that was happening when I was in school here was really things that you did with your family or with your in other groups. If there was like a scouting group or there wasn't anything directly connected to the school I can think of. Yeah, from an outdoor learning perspective. Yeah.
Nothing like what you both are.
Not like what's here right now. Yeah.
So I graduated from high school in 1989 in a suburb outside of the Twin Cities called Minnetonka. Lake culture, lots of lakes. Minnesota similar to Maine in a lot of respects. I was lucky. My parents have always been outdoorsy, so you know, spending time in the Boundary Waters, canoeing for weeks at a time, camping, spending time sailing, like just lots of things outdoors was kind of our MO. But similarly to Jake, there was, you know, it was a fairly affluent suburb outside of, and so lots of white collar jobs, and the emphasis was going to college, four-year college, and that was the push. And the money for most individuals was there to make that happen for the most part. But yeah, there was nothing offered like this at all. Yeah, and I think, you know, speaking to that, I think if you looked at the socioeconomic makeup of the students in the program now, it's very varied and wide-ranging. Mm-hmm. So, and that's pretty awesome as well. So, giving kids the opportunity who might not have had the opportunity. Yeah, and I think next year more than ever, I have kids who, when interviewed about their attendance in the program next year more than ever, where my parents don't do this and I want to do this. I want a piece of what I see people doing, and that's why I'm taking the program, which is a slight change from kids whose parents have already gotten them out, which is nice.
It is.
Yeah.
And is that a recent trend, you're saying?
Yeah, that's a trend. Yeah. So.
Can I throw one follow-up to that? Just high school experience stuff.
Yeah.
I will say, two teachers I had when I was at school here, one's still teaching here, and she's just an amazing instructor and earth science teacher, has her PhD now, and is still teaching freshmen, you know, both earth science and oceanography. And she would get us out, like we went to Augusta, and we spoke on behalf on wetland development. And then this other teacher, John McDonald, was a industrial arts teacher. And when I was a student here, I just looked in the back of Popular Mechanics and saw some hovercraft plans I thought were cool. And he said, go ahead and make it in the lab. And just that freedom and that support from those teachers and those kind of things they did that really were still outside the walls. I feel like this experience here has allowed us to channel that, and just to shout out to them. Because,
I'd say that was true. If I had to touch on anything that close that happened in my high school, it would have to have been the one or two teachers that taught environmental science. That seemed to be the connection. So, you know, not that we had the power or the transportation to go and partake, but at least the interest was there. Yeah. So.
And that teacher giving you the freedom to go with what you were excited about.
It was amazing. And when I came back out of engineering, he needed to go on sabbatical, so I came in and taught for him for 6 months in his space, and then everything kind of rolled into what it is now. But
wow, cool.
I guess I could start by just saying, you know, look beyond your screen and beyond your classroom and to your community. Don't be afraid to respond to some intriguing text about some program on a listserv, and just see where it takes you and where it goes. Don't be afraid to say yes occasionally and ride the wave. You ride the wave and carry your kids along with you in it, you know. Because you never know what's going to happen, but if you I feel like you can easily build your own walls pretty quickly, whether that's constraints from your own personality, or it's constraints you feel thrust upon you by your own administration or culture at your school. But don't be afraid to step out beyond those and recognize those are walls that are real.
I mean, ideally, our situation was perhaps an anomaly in the sense that Jake and I are pretty tight, and we make things happen whether they're school related or not. So we're doing things outside of school, and we communicate well together. But I would say that, like, within every institution, and Jake and I have been a part of lots of different groups where there's a group of positive change makers who want to make things happen in the building. Sometimes there can be power in numbers, sometimes there can be power in pairs, sometimes whether that's just collaborating, between two teachers that might share similar interests. But the dogged determination, like, of making something happen, there were a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that happened outside of the ordinary hours of school here to make everything that kids are partaking in happen here, and that was a labor of love. So, but yeah, I do know that admin that recognize you as professionals and who want to help, like, create change as well, rather than I think there's sometimes a lot of fear about putting your toe in, or because we've been lucky enough to be surrounded by people who have been brave enough to put a toe in, so to speak.
Absolutely, and I'd say, speaking to that culture of, I saw it both in the science department where I used to work, and at the tech center. When you walk into a classroom, and you could be interrupting someone, the first thing the other instructor does is they say, "Hey, what do you need? How can I help you?" And it's just like that in every room we go into, and it's in our rooms when someone needs something, laser engraved, or their Roomba's broken, and they wonder if we can try and fix it, or their skateboard, But it worked both ways, and with this project, it's just, without that support, this wouldn't be here.
Yeah, we didn't. I guess the word no just wasn't really, like, part of anyone's vocabulary, really.
When you weren't sure about something, you just asked someone. Our plumbing instructor, like, what do you think about this heat pump? Should we put it here in this ground, or should we hook it up? Is this big enough? No.
There's a lot of local wisdom.
Yeah. And they're curious. They'll come out, they want to check it, because all the custodians came out one hot afternoon. It was 80 degrees, and let's check this place out.
And Jake and I did have to pop in front of the board, quite a few times, and I think, and I'm not saying this is true everywhere, but, like, our board is extremely excited and extremely positive about the way. I think they wish there was just more of it throughout the entire district, not just this program, but they're super pumped about it, and there are a lot of people who believe strongly in outdoor education. So that was a nice feel when we went and had to rationalize or explain or do anything in front of our own board. That was really nice, and the support we got.
Yeah.
I think for me, scale and spread. So, like, I think a district adopting a more widespread inclusivity. I think we've tried, and we'll show maybe some examples of that. There's obviously a movement of inclusivity, adaptive outdoor education. There are avenues that we could pursue through local places like Sugarloaf and that sort of stuff to really open up doors for all kinds of kids, and give anyone who has an interest or it appeals to the opportunity to get outside and enjoy. That's one of the goals, which we're only 3 years in, so just building the infrastructure has been kind of where we've been at thus far. That's a huge one. And I think bringing other kids, the idea behind the program obviously is to create leaders, and so giving kids here the opportunity to be leaders with other kids in the district, and lead those kinds of trips would be pretty awesome. So.
I guess I come at it from a couple angles. One is with my engineering hat on, and then my hat on just appreciating the beauty and the incredibleness of our own place and surroundings. Besides just our large district, it's 10 to 13 towns from Mount Blue campus. The Foster CTE Center serves not just that district, but 3 others down, in Androscoggin County, all the way up to almost the Canadian border. So to reach out into those areas more environmental sensing and monitoring, making maps, employing technology to understand and better manage and conserve and develop or conserve land in ways that are good for the people that live here. I think with trips too, doing more trips, like get kids outside for extended periods. A couple weeks ago I got a call from a partner of Travis's that has helped the kids with the paddles and asked if you mind if we have a couple people camp out in your backyard? I'm like, sure, when? He's like, yeah, in an hour. 14 people, 14 high school kids. I was like, sure. And they had just hiked across from North Conway to Temple, Maine this winter on foot and ski. And then that day he called me, they were starting their venture from Mud Pond and Temple to Drury to Temple Stream to Sandy River to Kennebec to the ocean. So that was their first trip to the ocean from Temple in their canoes. It was pouring rain that night. But giving our kids some opportunity like that.
Yeah. And I do think, when you consider that idea of, there's lots of talk about whether, kids are inherently resilient or if that's a capacity we can build within kids. And I would say throughout my years, my experience has been that can be a learned skill, for sure. My kids are inherently more resilient at the end of the program than when they start.
We felt that in the canoe rides today. It was so cool.
So if you had to narrow it down to only 3 words to describe the type of learning that you're trying to promote here for students. So if you had to describe it, even if it's just thinking of it differently from what you experienced, 3 words.
I would say lifelong, passionate.
So I was leaning on these P's, practical, pragmatic,
Nice.
and something with persistence. That grit, that troubleshooting, it didn't work for the 3rd time, let's do it again,
Yeah.
Having that patience to work through something. Practical, pragmatic, persistent.
And I would say relationships.
Hmm.
And that's within the program, that's with me and them, that's with whoever they come across in the future.
Yeah.